It seems that there's nothing Da Vinci did not do. Da Vinci was a painter, an engineer, a writer, a sculptor, an inventor, an architect, a pioneer in exploring human anatomy, an avid animal lover, and possibly one of the most famous vegetarians, if not vegans, who ever lived. It seems that there's nothing that this man did not do. Yet there was. It was sleeping. He wasn't a fan of it, and after conducting careful research and building up his knowledge, he started following the polyphasic sleep cycle. To put it in other words, Da Vinci's sleep would consist of several short naps every 24 hours. And of course, being the Renaissance man is not so easy. When someone thinks of surrealism, chances are that Dali and his pomade-covered mustache comes to one's mind. His life was as eccentric and surreal as his paintings, but apart from driving around with a car filled with cauliflowers and walking around Paris with an anteater, there was something that seems even more peculiar. Once he married his muse and love of his life, Gala, he treated her like a goddess. He bought her a castle and was allowed to visit her, his wife, only with a written invitation. The giant of Russian literature, Lev Tolstoy, not only wrote historically accurate books, but he himself became of historical importance while still being alive. Despite coming from the highest layers of society, Tolstoy eventually started questioning the morale of society that he lived in and started following his own path. He became a vegetarian, started following a vigorous daily routine, and denounced the looks of a rich man. He started wearing peasant clothes and shoes, which, despite not being too skilled, were made by himself. The Sistine Chapel in Vatican City might be celestial, but its creator, Michelangelo, one of the most important names in Western arts history, was far from that. And for a simple reason, which is hygiene. Michelangelo slept with his clothes and boots on, without removing them for days. He avoided showering and even considered it a health hazard. Well, he might have had a point, because he lived until he was 89 years old. Were it not for coffee, one could not write, which is to say one could not live, is what Balzac, the renowned French novelist, playwright, and the author of Human Comedy once said. And he really meant it, because barely was a minute when he was not sipping this elixir of life. It's estimated that Balzac drank 50 coffee cups a day. You may wonder, how does one sleep when you're permanently on a caffeine rush? But that's how Balzac liked it, since he woke up daily at 1 a.m., so he could jump straight into writing. The eccentric Mexican artist Frida Kahlo suffered from very poor health all her life, but from the way she lived, it's sure that she was no ordinary mortal. What made her special was her love for animals. She had many pets, and most of them seemed like they belonged either in the jungle or one of her surrealistic paintings. She kept dogs, monkeys, parrots, hens, and sparrows. She even had a fawn called Granizo and an eagle with a slightly different name, Gertrudis Capablanca, which translates to Gertrudis White Yeah, you know how it ends. Ludwig van Beethoven did write the glorious Symphony No. 9, which is now the anthem of European Union, while being already deaf. But of course, that's just the tip of the iceberg of his input into musical history. Yet, stellar results require astronomic discipline. Each morning, Beethoven counted by hand 60 coffee beans from which he would make his perfect cup of coffee. Also, in order to restart his creative muscles after writing too much music, he would pour cold water on his head. The mother of American modernism, Georgia O'Keeffe, was an artist with special needs. In order for her to be productive and be able to paint whatever she wanted without being disturbed by outsiders, she had to work in her studio, and this studio was a mobile one. Oh, and she could travel around in this studio because it was the backseat of a Model A Ford. Yes, Georgia O'Keeffe used to paint in her car. A big name in the world of classic music, the Canadian pianist Glenn Gould was famous not only for his virtuosic skills and unique playing style, he also was a very odd character with many the eccentricities of a hypochondriac. He always wore an overcoat and gloves in all temperatures because of his fears of catching germs and getting sick. And when performance time arrived, he would always bring his own chair with him, no matter where the concert took place. It always had to be his own magical chair. Andy Warhol, the face of pop art, is easy to distinguish from a crowd because he indeed was a dandy and took great care of his looks, and most importantly, his iconic hairdo, which was actually a wig. Speaking of hair and unusual habits, Warhol really connected both of these elements by having the unusual habits of collecting wigs. Eventually, he hoarded a collection of 40 wigs. First of all, not many people know that Pablo Picasso is just the short version of his full name, which is actually Pablo Diego José Francisco de Paula Juan Nepomuceno María de los Remedios Cipriano de la Santísima Trinidad Ruiz y Picasso. For real. But he became famous for being an unstoppable force wherever he went. He changed art forever. He was not discouraged by critics, and he even was not scared when facing the Gestapo, the secret Nazi police. Yet he was unmovable in his daily life as well, because wherever he went he carried a revolver so that not many would dare to mess with this hot-tempered Spanish legend. Queen Elizabeth I of England was known for her love of sugar. She would consume vast amounts of sweet treats every day, including marzipan, candied fruit, and sugar sculptures. In fact, it is said that her teeth were so badly decayed by the time of her death that they had to be removed. The famous composer Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart had a habit of constantly tapping his foot and making strange noises while he worked. He would also jumping up and down in excitement when he was pleased with a particular piece of music. Vincent van Gogh, the Dutch painter known for his vibrant, colorful artworks, had a strange habit of eating yellow paint. He believed that the color yellow had a positive effect on his mood and would often consume small quantities of paint to lift his spirit. Charles Darwin, the English naturalist famous for his theory of evolution, had a strange habit of collecting and classifying various objects, including seashells, fossils, and bird feathers. He would spend hours studying and categorizing these items, often to the detriment of his other work. Marie Curie, the Polish-born physicist and chemist, had a habit of carrying test tubes full of radioactive substances in her pocket. She would often use these test tubes in her experiments, exposing herself to dangerous levels of radiation in the process. Albert Einstein, the famous physicist and mathematician, had a habit of not wearing socks. He believed that socks were a needless hassle and would often go without them, even in cold weather. And finally, Queen Victoria of England had a bizarre habit of carrying a slice of bread with her wherever she went. She would use it to feed the birds in the park or to give to any beggars she encountered on the street.